Hey there, welcome to episode 37 of the Cafe Genius Impresario's audio program. Today is the 10th of November. It's Friday. Yay. Recording this later than normal. It's totally fine. You listen whenever you want. So I'll record whenever I want. How about that? I kid. Today is Friday, like I said. We're coming to the end of 2023, ever so slowly. So today we are going to cover a couple of quick updates towards 2024. The DTP Retrospective is something I did an entire episode about last week. I was hoping to have it out for sort of some early, let's say, beta testing this week, but I've actually been working on it quite a bit. There are about a dozen sections. I've broken it up into sections so that people can, if they want to participate, can take a section here, take a section there, skip a section, do it at their own pace. I anticipate it will take a year to engage with people, to convince them of the value, and have them complete it or come close to completing it. So there are at least 50 questions. I haven't actually gone through and counted. Each section has, anywhere from maybe 10. There's a section about infrastructure that has like 4 subsections, and it sounds crazy. These are very basic topics. Like there's nothing outlandish. Let me pick one here. I have it open right now. So let's go for, I just mentioned infrastructure. So let's go to infrastructure. Let's go to housing. Why not? So the infrastructure has communications like, internet access and whatnot. Tools, as in, what kind of there was at least one downtown project application, mobile app that somebody wrote to connect with people. What did you think of that? Were there sufficient tools? Transportation, getting around, like did you need a car, buses, bikes, etc. So housing, let me just pick one. From my recollection, DTP or its constituents adequately considered housing need and provided at least some resources to identify housing options during my participation in the downtown project. And you can strongly agree, neither agree nor disagree, strongly disagree. So there are a lot of questions like that where it's an assertion, you agree, disagree. So it's not a tremendous amount of work. There are, however, I'm going to say all of the subsections, I think with few exceptions, and there may not be a need for exceptions. The free form, text area. So my general thoughts on housing related to my participation in the downtown project, including my own experiences for myself and my collaborators, or observations of others. So that's, say whatever you want or nothing. The only required field in each section is an email address so that they can all be connected together. Because again, the design of this survey is is broken up in multiple sections so that you can take a section, do it today, do another one next month or whenever. So you just have to connect your email address. Now, this is using, I have selected fillout.com because it's free and it seems pretty capable. I think it's a better experience than plain old Google Forms. I'll stick a link to fill out in the show notes if you want to check it out. But the bad news is the free tier has some limitations that are not awful. But one of them is that you submit your email address to them, and which is fine, really. I mean, in the global scope of things. But I found it interesting that you can export the forms that you create, and it exports a big JSON file. If you're familiar with JavaScript object notation. So they basically say here, if you want to import this into a different collection of forms on their own platform, or presumably do something else with it. So I'm toying with the idea of deploying the forms. So I'm using fill out. I keep saying form fill to myself. I'm using fill out as a editing platform, I guess, to put together all the stuff. It's actually a little bit cumbersome on the editing side. Excuse me. A little coffee. little bit cumbersome on the editing side. So it's okay. I did not get any collaboration with the people who indicated an interest in doing that. It would have been useful for that. So yeah, so I'm going to deploy them. So the point of exporting the forum content is, rather than handing all the data to them and having the limitation of like 1,000 submissions per month, I think it is for the free tier, I can export the forums and publish them myself once they're done, and I can get away from email, because I'd like people to be able to participate without sharing their email address. So I'm toying with the idea of using either a magic URL, which is server side. So that means you've seen this before if you've used medium.com or countless other platforms. You log in by providing an email address, and they email you a link so that you can sign in. So that still ties something to an email address, and that may or may not be interesting to people. My interest is in getting opinions from people, their reflections and recollections from their time participating. By the way, when I say participating in the Downtown Project, there may be confusion at the time. So my intent is that you were just a part of it in some way. Early on, there's a part where you say that you either worked for Downtown Project itself, you consulted for them, you had your own project, you worked downtown, maybe you worked at a retail establishment or at one of the casinos, or whatever. You worked at El Cortez, who knows? So you were sort of proximal or adjacent. Maybe you were a visitor from time to time, especially if you were a speaker or presenter, and then maybe you were a spectator like I was. Like, I lived, and I do still live, about 12 miles north of downtown, but I would frequently visit and hang out, got to know everybody and all that. So I was a spectator, not a participant. So I would like people to be able to participate in the survey without, if they feel the need, without saying, without feeling like they might be called out in some way. I'd like people to be honest, but also not identify people by name. So one of the challenges will be to reflect on the time without reflecting on the people of the time. For example, when I first proposed this early in 2023, some of the reactions were immediately defensive of the late Tony Hsieh. As I've told people, it would be possible to complete this entire survey without mentioning Tony Hsieh or any name. I don't mention any names in any part of the survey. So it's not about people, it's about infrastructure. Well, I do have a whole section about people, but it's intended to be very generic, right? Like people coming to Vegas, not individual person coming to Vegas. So for the purposes of pursuing a project or a startup or something like this. So yeah, the goal is to not identify individuals and call them out or even celebrate them. It's really about the entire project as a whole, the infrastructure, the programs, the methods, the infrastructure, how things went. So anyway, yeah. So my idea would be that you type in your email on your side, and whether it's shared or not, that's a question. Because I would like to be able to contact people for phase 2. By the way, this is phase 1 I'm talking about. Phase 1 is survey questions across several topics, many questions. Take your time. And then phase 2 will be more interactive. Maybe there'll be an entire podcast channel, audio program, or maybe videos, who knows. So more interaction, more discussion perhaps. And if we get to phase 2, to be able to reach people would be useful. So maybe we'll wait for phase 2 opt-in. Anyway, so there would be a way to create a user anonymous login credential, and then have someone be able to participate as a unique individual. Right? I would know these 12 different sections were filled out by the same person, but I would not know specifically who they were if they did not want me to know. So they would create in their browser, they would create a unique ID based probably on their email address and a password, right? And then you hash that together, something like that. So that's probably where I'm going to head with this, rather than having host the forms. And I'll stick a link to fill out in the show notes. You can check that out. In general, not my forms yet. I have not published them yet for people to check out, but that's, even though I said it last week, that is alarmingly close. I do have tons. So I'm cross-referencing some of them so that anybody who's ever created a survey, you know that you're supposed to, you should have some of the questions sort of restate so you can see. It's not to catch anyone, but it's really just to present the same sorts of questions in different ways and see how the responses go. So I'm not being overly conscientious about that, but there are several that one might say, hey, I already answered this, but it's there's a method to the madness. So one reason we are doing the retrospective, and when I say we, I mean me, there may be some other people participating, but I've been driving this because I find it fascinating that we have this experiment that took place in the downtown Las Vegas area, and we're trying to foment a tech culture here. I'm not a big fan. One of the things I'm fascinated by is the fact that things that worked and things that did not, that's going to be a discussion. But in my opinion, one of the things that worked but maybe did not work was the fact that the downtown project was not a tech startup community. Certainly tech played a role. There was the Vegas Tech Fund, right? It's right there in the name. But a certain amount of investment and effort and focus and participation went into retail, restaurants, the arts district, for example, several restaurants on Fremont and near Fremont Street, Fremont East, retail establishments, toy stores, things like this. So it wasn't merely, come here and build an app. It was come here and start your, want to know, it'll be interesting to know what the pitch was. I believe that's one of the questions, or it should be, is, what drew you to the downtown project? Why did you move or relocate or come here temporarily? Was it someone convincing you with a pitch? Did you read about it? How did you hear about us? Right. So I think there was broad appeal and broad focus, and you didn't have to be building an app to be included, which I think was the way to go, to be honest, in a place like Las Vegas. So I would like to take what those aspects, at least, for example, and apply them to today and see what we have and what we don't have, what's working and what's not working in the current push towards economic diversity, as they would say. So our entrepreneurial ecosystem may or may not be usable by everyone. Certainly funding and focus at a local level, certainly not in our local media, but on the ground, there's a focus on tech, and you can, the Startup NV efforts are focused on tech, on apps, I think they do some bio. It's on their website, which I will not link to because you can find that. This is not about Startup NV, but in general, the view is that our economic diversity should aim for being the next Silicon Valley. I don't agree with that. We should be a better Las Vegas, right? So we can apply things that people learned from the same footprint, the downtown Las Vegas area, and maybe apply them to the greater Vegas area. But we can learn from what they learned if they're willing to share. So that's one of the things that is driving the look back. Those who do not remember history are condemned to repeat it, as they say. So, and that was a quote. You can find that in my previous episode of this audio program with the attribution. Santanaya. I can't remember his name. I can pull it up right now. Well, I'm looking at my notes right here. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. That's George Santayana from The Life of Reason, 1905. There you go. I'm a fan of attribution. It was easy to do that, so there you go. So anyway, the ecosystem of today will, I believe, based just on that simple quote, but also common sense, will benefit from looking at the same general area. So many of the same people, some of the same limitations, like traffic, getting around, not super easy. Other things like, the focus on gaming and the sort of the main focus of the local economy versus where the downtown project fit into that. And we can compare that to today, right? The fun economy versus the tech scene, so to speak. So this was, by the way, the general mission of the first Genius Roundtable that we had earlier in the year, from January to June of 2023. We had several people, 7, 6. Yeah. I was hoping for like 8, I think. But the Genius Roundtable, the goal was to become very familiar, to fully comprehend our entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem so that we could form essentially the basis for some entrepreneurs in residence who are actually here, ideally with a diverse background for each well, I said that wrong. Ideally with diverse backgrounds and an interest in proactively participating in the development of the entrepreneurial ecosystem, not as a way of making money directly, but certainly having expertise in a high-profile role, being an entrepreneur in residence at city scale. Normally, you find EIRs at investment, VC firms, at law firms, maybe at a school. So the EIR is sort of oftentimes not a long-term or full-time role, but it's someone who is a experienced entrepreneur who has a time. I think I've read one description as someone who's between startups. So, which is a thing. So I just find it funny that is a thing. So the roundtable was ideally a sort of a masterclass in our own ecosystem, if you will. No instruction, no master teaching the class, but designed to seriously focus, ideate on what we have, what we don't, etc. So the retrospective was part of our discussions, and it's something that I believe will be highly valuable. One of the people at the roundtable did some work on an entrepreneurial ecosystem survey. Initially, well, actually, his metrics will make an appearance at some point. So rather than mentioning him here, he'll be receiving attribution in the processing part. So I'll just save that for when we publish all this stuff. The people at the roundtable were proactive and interesting at the beginning. Interest waned a bit. We only had one meeting a month. Maybe that was too much. So by the 6th month, it was very clear we were not going to be having a third round. We had 2 3-month cohorts. So interest had waned, productivity had dropped to 0. Didn't make sense to continue that. So rejiggering, as some are wont to say in my line of work. Some people need to add baffles to their exhaust. If you can hear that, the community of practice approach will be where we head for the next roundtable in 2024. I would also be very happy to find a more diverse crowd rather than the usual denizens of downtown or the current tech scene. So I'm really interested in broader age distribution. There are young entrepreneurs in Las Vegas. There are several that are minors, 12, 13, 10 maybe. So if you are a kid, so to speak, in the greater Vegas area, how do you become entrepreneurial? What are the challenges there? What's missing? How are you able to proceed? Surely a parent or some trusted adult is there to sign paperwork and so on. So that would be interesting. Obviously, not everything is tech or consulting. So people that have restaurants or food trucks or retail establishments or other would be interesting. So we'll see if we can get the roundtable for 2024 up and running, and we'll change it into a community of practice. So it will not be focused on the meetups. It will be focused on the practice. And I have a link to the founder or the originator of the term community of practice. They have a website. So there's an introduction to community of practice. You can give that a look. Community of practice is an interesting appeal to those interested in participating. Kind of sets some, not some rules, but maybe ground rules. But it turns it into a matter of intent rather than showing up. You actually participate. You really do show up, I guess you could say. So I think that will be a valuable change, so that we know what we're getting into from the beginning. So Roundtable 2024, if you are interested, you can email me to Hugo at cafegenius.org, CAFFEGENIUS.org, Hugo, cafegenius.org. So yeah, Roundtable 2024. I really need to update my website for this. I've been focusing too much on 25 other things, plus getting this retrospective ready, and then that will go up on the website as well. Pitch practice, that has sort of fallen off this month. We were trying to do it at least once a month for Pitch Mingle. That was graciously hosted free of charge, which is amazing, by the Desert Wind Coffee Roasters on Sahara. Oh, I should put a link to them too. Link in the notes. They do have a website, although you're probably going to find more information on Yelp. Maybe I'll link to their review also. But the Cafe Genius Pitch Mingles, we've been having them once a month at Desert Wind, and they're good enough to allow us an after hours, which is nice because we don't upset their customers, but we do have a setting that is any age friendly, but also sort of realistic. Our barista, Oliver, comes in after hours, and we kind of have the place to ourselves. And he, all we ask is that you pick up a coffee or two, but you're literally mingling in a mingling setting, in a social setting. You're not in a lecture hall or a cold co-work space. This is a real coffee shop. You can even get snacks. So you might be holding your coffee, having a conversation. And ideally, people show up late, people leave early. There's some chaos, maybe some noise. There's some music playing, some mood music in the coffee shop itself. So it's a fairly real scenario. And we one time had 20 people show up, which was a great example of how it's supposed to work. It's a little bit cacophonous, and you have people describing what they're working on. You have people asking questions. And the idea is to try to be able to accomplish those things very quickly, because you are bound in the real world, in a real mingling scenario. You're bound to be interrupted. You're bound to be called away, or the person you're talking to is called away, right? Like somebody will inject themselves, hey, I haven't talked to you for, hey, sorry to interrupt, right? So the sooner you can make your point, describe what you're working on, and it could be your startup, or it could be a charity effort, it could be anything, but to be succinct and to be able to impress or leave an impression of some sort on your conversation partner under those circumstances is the goal to practice. And people don't really practice that enough. So you find yourself at a presentation or a meeting of some sort, and you are mingling. Everybody's standing around with coffee, or maybe after hours, maybe a trip to the bar, maybe a little happy hour gathering, an after work, and you have only a fleeting moment to share your ideas. So being able to practice that in a neutral setting, it's been valuable. So we'll try to get that sort of back on a regular, what do you call that? A regular footing? I don't know. Well, we'll get those going regularly. And I would love to do it twice a month. That would be ideal, to have that much interest. As well, the Pitch Workout Room, as you listening to this may or may not know, we used to have those at Tech Alley. We kicked that off January 11th, I believe it was. 15th. January 15th, I think it was, maybe. 2022, every month at 9 a.m. It was literally a addition to the schedule. So we didn't have to replace anybody on the existing Tech Alley schedule. Hey, we have the room from 9 a.m. if you want, 9 to 10, and then the event would start. So that worked out pretty well. People would complain that it was too early, to which I would say, well, maybe you're not ready to be entrepreneurial. This is an opportunity. It is not it is not a gift that you can turn away. It is an opportunity for you to take advantage of and not complain about it. So I want to say we did it 18 times. Pardon me. 18. No, I think we did it. Well, we did it for a year. We did it probably 12 or 13 times. And eventually as interest at the 9 a.m. hour waned, we decided to try an experiment and do it at the Innovation Center downtown in the evening. So by starting at 6 p.m. and not having an end, we were able to have more people. We were able to have different formats, no longer packing in. We did the tight 5, which was 5 minutes of pitch, 5 minutes of feedback, because we only had an hour. So we'd have 6 people. When you have an unlimited amount of time, much more room. There were whiteboards. There was the monitors for making presentations. You could just talk freely. You could have a timer running. You could have a stopwatch running to just time how long you did go if you've never practiced before. So the number of options made it a better event, I think. So we'll get back to doing that. Don Jacobson at the Innovation Center has always been supportive of these sorts of things. So here again, we were able to do this free of charge. If the city of Las Vegas has done one thing right, it has been retaining the skills and personality of Don Jacobson. So cheers to Don Jacobson. Drink them if you got them. Coffee. So yeah, Don has been instrumental in enabling things like that. Unfortunately, getting the word out is the challenge. So local communications, and I will stick a note about the link, to this as well. I've linked to it previously. There was the ecosystem report, and I'm not looking at it at the moment, so I can't tell you the precise title. But Mo Collins, whom I had on this audio program many months ago, back in April, it was an interesting discussion, although I did not press her on many issues that I think, on reflection, we had our episode like a week or two after the paper was published, so it was 101 pages. So I read the whole thing, focused on the Southern Nevada part. We had our 2 hours of audio program. Now, on reflection, I think there were a couple of things missing, or some focus could have been more focused on a couple of things. So it's still a line in the sand. It's useful information. So local communication is one of the issues that she, I believe, correctly called out in need of work. So let me, I'm going to update my notes here. And okay, so I'll make sure those links are in the show notes, which should be available wherever you've found this podcast episode. So local communications missing, she suggests in the paper, and it's, by the way, I think it was our 3rd project for the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, of which I am the managing director. We innovate for Vegas when people show up. Getting the word out includes a centralized calendar. Now, centralized meaning calendar information doesn't necessarily mean one person owns all notions of calendar. So there have been some local attempts at creating these community platforms. So possibly you may have heard, first of all, there's Meetup, which is a bad platform, but unfortunately it's the one that people use. LinkedIn events, Discord has events, Eventbrite. There are various other tools out there. Then we have our local, Network.Vegas, Tech.Vegas, Create.Vegas. Those are ad fountains, and they're just kind of a mess, not really useful. There was, I want to say it was VegasTechnology.com or something. Another insular platform, Silo. So it's another place to draw people. So one of the problems with Conway's Law, as it applies here, maybe I'll link to that too, so you'll know what I'm talking about. Conway's Law, that we build systems that mirror our real world infrastructure or engagements or interactions. So by building a platform like Tech.Vegas, Tech.Vegas, I believe, is just a WordPress site, and it has a WordPress plugin for calendars. I don't know if they do it manually, but they scrape content from Meetup and other places. Maybe you can submit your calendar entry to them, but it's not really a calendar in the sense that it is not a CalDave server with iCalendar stream content and content syncing and so on. So you've essentially got a platform that forks events. So it gives you, if you are an event organizer and your event is spread across Meetup and Eventbrite and LinkedIn and Facebook and all these platforms that are silos, we already have silos. We already have insular communities here. That's also in the paper. So again, in the show notes linked. It's a PDF though, so sorry. And so you're building insular platforms to connect insular communities. And so you end up just repeating the same problems over and over. So at the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, our smart social platform aims at decentralizing that so that while there may be a calendar that you can submit your events to using calendar standards, CalDave, iCalendar Streams, etc. So you own your calendar and you basically have the server subscribe to your calendar. So if you're using Google Calendar, for example, or Outlook or Apple Calendar, iCalendar, you say, here is my calendar subscription link. It's probably an ICS URL. So the end of the URL says .ics on an iCalendar stream. You say, here's where my calendar stream can be found, and the server will read that every once in a while. So now, rather than you having to update 10 different websites with your cancellation or time change or venue change, you update your calendar, and then the server, well, actually, you update your calendar, which goes to the Google or Outlook or whichever server. The Smart Social calendar server can ping your server periodically, maybe daily, and see if there's any changes and update its notion of a calendar. And the fun part is if you have different servers that are talking like this, then the central calendar is actually available in a decentralized way. They just synchronize the calendar entries. This allows people to have calendar servers that are more focused in, for example, suppose there's a concert calendar, right? So if there's a concert calendar that keeps track of musical events in and around the greater Vegas area, it might not subscribe to the same sorts of things that a entrepreneurial calendar, the entrepreneurial ecosystem calendar, may be completely different. But the fact is, you can aggregate from both of those somewhere else. So it really frees up the notion of calendaring, taking advantage of standards. So I've gone on at length about this to say that this is something worth thinking about. And it's a problem that's already been solved if people are interested in making use of those solutions, which are old. The CalDave standard is decades old. The iCalendar standard is decades old. But as luck would have it, your device in your pocket right now totally works with those. Google, Apple, Yahoo, Microsoft Outlook, many more are able to synchronize calendars and so on. So there's no reason to not have a better awareness and easier discovery of what's happening. So for example, finding pitch practice. We publish our calendar. I should put that in there too. Damn it. It's going to be a lot of links. Pitch practice calendar. We publish it with Google Calendar, which has its issues, but it does publish an iCalendar stream link that you can subscribe to. So forevermore, you would know about pitch practice calendar entries. So by enabling aggregation of that, you could subscribe to the pitch practice calendar as part of an entrepreneurial ecosystem calendar. So you would be able to decide, maybe you have a named calendar on your software that's like Vegas entrepreneurs, and you could have an aggregation of different events that fall into that ecosystem category. So I think there are a lot of interesting things that we can do if people are willing to participate in innovation. And we are an innovation hub. I don't know if you've read the news. We're not on the list, but if there was a second tier, which is usually where Vegas appears when it comes to this sort of thing, there are opportunities for innovation. And the important part is we have 40 million people visiting that we can share that innovation with. So something to think about. And that is also something that will come up in Roundtable 2024. It came up during the first Roundtable, and it's time to implement that notion. And there will be more on that later. So thank you so much for listening to this little update. There are several wheels are turning, several projects are in process. Nothing has been forgotten. When you are an army of one, everything is priority zero. And that makes for long days and schedule delays. So thank you for listening. If you are caught up in the Formula One excitement, drama, malaise, I'm right there with you. So enjoy. I think our next episode will likely be about our economy, whether it's fun or no fun, the focus on that, the diversity of our economy has, like a pendulum, swung back to right where you think it would. So look for that next week. If you are listening weekly, thank you for that. If you share this with others, thank you for that. And remember, self-hosting of content, always a good idea. And ideally, this podcast, audio program, and others will be making an appearance in this smart social platform I have already described. But that is for another episode, and probably more so on the Let's Innovate for Vegas podcast, which you should also be listening to. Thank you so much. Have a great holiday season. If you put off listening to podcasts, audio programs, YouTube videos, and so on about this sort of thing until the new year, that'll be fine. Just do catch up, because every week it's something interesting and different. And if you want to be a guest, don't forget, you're always welcome. Let's talk about our entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem. Ciao.